Black people need to own our own businesses, which will provide an economic base, teach our youth to become self-sufficient, learn how to maximize our political affiliations, and fight for criminal justice reform. You just tuned in to Black Power Presents with your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Come on, let's talk. Black people need to own our own.
but over a period of the 400 years, there were millions of them going through their own holocaust extermination. The uniqueness of the Africans who were brought here during that European slave trade was an economic venue, and I like to insert that prior, after my going into Alabama and into southern states, we've been doing extensive archaeological work. Africans were over here even before then, but they were not here in the capacity of being colonizers. They were just here. Now that's the tragedies within our experience and that you are addressing is the miseducation of the Negro that Carter G. Woodson did a good job in his book, and I use it as my sociological textbook for the students in college, but it's a good book to use for students in high school and seventh and eighth graders because it's about only 167 pages. And it's an interesting book by Carter G. Woodson, who was talking about education.
Right.
And as you mentioned the word race, in the East where I studied, we say there is only one race. That's the human race.
Right.
But scholarship, intellectual views, racial categories as a socially, they use the term socially constructed.
Yes.
It's a social construct. And so when you have a social construct, I would surmise and say that is a method of power
Right.
to suppress or oppress
Mm-hmm.
persons. And now you mention what is going on with the in the black experience.
Yes.
400 years is not a long time, and I would say only 100 years of us truly being quote free based on constitution and paper, but we are still suffering from what I would phrase as you're hearing so-called health officials post traumatic stress disorder or post traumatic stress,
Mm-hmm.
and that is still going on. And
Mm-hmm.
often when I was having to make presentations, and particularly in the pulpit, people did not want to hear about their history of oppression.
Right.
They would tell the story of the 400 or 500 or 600 years of the Israelites being enslaved
Mm-hmm.
Egypt and build a story, but we have a good 400 years of history of blacks enslaved, and at the same time, how the divine powers, and I'm not going to use the Old Testament in this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying how many of our people, our ancestors in slavery, worked hard for their liberation, but that story is never really told
Right.
like it ought to be because many of the scholars that write our history, the ones I've known, colleagues, have been white.
Right. Right.
But that's the way it is.
Well, Dr. Brown, it just seems to me, and Pastor Ricky, I know you can chime in anytime, man, but we can see very clearly that something is deeply wrong with black people. I mean, deeply wrong with us. And it's just hard to put words around it. I mean, it seems as though we were complaining about this level of brutality when it came to being in slavery. And of course, that's rightfully so. I'm not trying to diminish none of that. And we're also looking and promoting right now the fact that if a black person gets killed by an officer, I mean, it just seems like the major media is picking up on that and really, really going in on police officers. And I'm not saying that needs to be addressed, because it does need to be addressed. I'm not minimizing it. I'm saying it does need to be addressed. However, living the black experience, as you mentioned, Dr. Brown, it seems as though our problem with homicides and murder is much more greater than an officer and an experience with an officer, with one individual or a few individuals being killed. And I'm not trying to, please hear me well. I'm not trying to take away the empathy of George Floyd and some of the others that's coming up, because truly those are tragedies. There's no doubt about it. But we're living in neighborhoods where young men are being contracted to kill each other almost on a daily basis. And it seems to me that should be more of the attention. I think, even if you want to argue equal attention, but seem like that should be one of the main focuses that we should have. What do you think, Dr. Ricky? Pastor Ricky, are you with us? You with us, Pastor Ricky? Well, I'm going to bounce this over to back over to Dr. Brown. What do you think about, the statements that was just mentioned?
Now, this is the way I'm seeing it, and this is what I'm writing about. Here's what I'm seeing, and it's going to be kind of bitter. What they use the word, bittersweet, sweet, bitter, well, anyway.
Right.
The dynamic that's going on within the black experience, I think we talk about mental health, but do we ever really discuss mental illness?
Mm-hmm.
The word is mental health. Well, mental health has to address mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And often much of our mental health talk is really descriptive to me of mental illness. Now, I'll take that to another dimension. And when I speak of mental illness, I look at black on black killing, mental illness driven by a fear to love,
Good here, Ricky. Can we bring him?
and a love to fear.
Right.
And in that little caption of the statement, the black on black killing is an illness that emerges out of our own historicity.
Mm-hmm.
And we are caught in that dilemma, and we're not coming up with what I call educational providers, let's say psychological health providers, how to overcome our fears. We fear each other because we refuse to trust one another.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still in our own kind of way trying to be accepted by our oppressor.
Right.
Now, one of the most unique communities that I give a lot of attention to is the community of my Jewish brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they have such a low crime rate? Why do they have such a unifying social and political and economic structure
Mm-hmm.
that they will definitely buy, definitely sell, definitely serve one another to their benefits?
Mm-hmm.
And they are not too quick. Now, if you're a Murdoch,
Mm-hmm.
was an interesting character that made billions, he ripped off everybody. But if you study the economics of what I call the Jewish tradition,
Mm-hmm.
you will learn a lesson on economics. It's
Mhm.
interesting. We do not have enough, first, we don't have enough self-respect to reach from our self-respect and reach to others and respect one another.
All right, you listen to Black Power Presents. I'm your host, Antonio Lipscomb, and We always open the lines. This is a community show, 239-1310. 317-239-1310 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the show. Pastor Ricky Cease, he's my associate pastor over at Community Church Indy, and he's come on to be a co-host with us today. Pastor Ricky, do we have you in the house?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Hey, we got a caller that called in. I want to make sure I free that line up just in case somebody else want to call. Go ahead with your comment or question, caller.
Well, it's really embarrassing. All they want to do is sell dope. That's what the last thing they got to do is sell dope to their own people. So that's what they come on talking about, fear the love and love the fear garbage. It's nothing. And it's just nothing but a bunch of people trying to sell dope. That's just the last thing they got. I watched the program the other evening on Channel 20 on how the bougie white color people went down south to do poor field hands into disturbing their way of life and didn't have nothing to offer in return. So I think it's just we need to close all this stuff up about fear, love, and love. I mean, it's sickening, man. I throw up on that. People are just need to start thinking, you've got to work, Anthony. I mean, anybody knows if he's out there chopping in a mortarboard or something, or laying out a square for building, or lay block, or do something with tools and carpenters,
right,
he's not going to have any mental illness. The worst thing you can get is no money. So that's what they're trying to push you for. They want to use your belly to stuff dope in. That's all they want to do. This whole concept that's out now, even the Chamber of Commerce coming in there talking about selling dope. All they let color people sell dope to their own people. It's nothing new. I mean, think of something new. It's all a bunch of fucking garbage.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for your riveting comments. I appreciate your comments. Larry is very, very passionate about this subject matter, and rightfully so. My heart is heavy today. I mean, I tell you, it is even hard to come on this broadcast and talk because it just seemed like with these homicides, you just don't know where to begin. And I do have to agree with Larry. It's easier to deal with mental illness, like you was talking about, Dr. Brown, if you got a job or some type of income coming in. It's very difficult to deal with your internal problems. And there's a disparity. I think unemployment is pretty low for the most part for people here in Indiana. But I think there is a disparity with African Americans being at like 12% more than the average, greater than the average. So we do need to look at mental health issues. I got another caller that's calling in. Go ahead with your comment or question.
Hi, am I on?
You're absolutely on. What's your name? You're on Black Power Presents. If you want to give it, I don't have a screen to see your name if you want to give it.
Oh, that's okay. My name is Deborah.
Welcome, Deborah.
I just happened to get in my car and on the station as I was driving, and I was listening just to part of your conversation, probably like for the last 5 to 7 minutes. But I'm really disturbed. I'm disturbed, and I'm sure I'm going to have a totally different point of view.
Okay.
But I'm disturbed by your comments.
Okay.
Now, please also keep in mind, I have not heard your entire conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They were talking about, you said, if I can get it correctly, that we should be more concerned, or equally as concerned about black on black killing, black on black crime.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And, yes, we should be concerned about that. But what that is a diversion. That is taking away from what is going on in with police brutality. We watched almost a year ago. We watched a man be murdered in front of our eyes, which was extremely tough. It was just traumatizing.
Yes, ma'am.
Not just to Americans, but to people around the world. That was traumatizing. And then to switch the conversation or to flip the script over to, well, we need to be talking about black on black crime. You know what? We do, but now's not the time. What I'm saying is there is a time, but right now the focus is on getting our police system changed, how they do things, not just locally. It needs to be done federally, so that it's sweeping across the board. No one in America should ever I don't care who you are. No one should ever be exempt from being punished for their crimes.
Right.
Okay. Yes, there is a time we need to deal with black on black issues, but let's deal with it at home.
Okay, and I appreciate your comments. Let me say this, because you're right. I don't think you were able to get all of what I was saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. However, please know that, right before I came onto this show, I had a young man that was coming to our church. I believe he had a promising future. But, time and time again, I'm experiencing black men and now black women and children losing their life, record-breaking numbers. I mean, especially here in Indianapolis. And, and I did state that I'm not minimizing by one iota the interaction with the police and needing to deal with that. I think I was very clear with that. But I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I do think that looking at the history, what Dr. Brown was talking about, with us going through such a horrific time of history, enslavement and whatnot, and coming somewhat partially out of that. I think they used the criminal justice system to kind of do some of that now. But it's starting to go, hopefully it's starting to trend in the right direction, because we got a lot of Caucasian brothers now that are being locked up as well. But the thing of what I'm saying is, and I might be, a little bit out of line, but please forgive me, because my heart is just heavy right now. I still see this young man coming to my church. I prophesied over him. I was trying to get him out of that life of a degradation, and my heart is just hurting right now. I mean, I'm wanting to see, because I know we're looking at things from a national position, but please keep in mind, our show is a local show. Primarily, it reaches Indianapolis and somewhat of the surrounding areas, but not very far. And so when I talk about things, I want to talk about how can we make Indianapolis better, because things is warming up. And I'm afraid to see more scattered bodies all throughout this city of different individuals killing each other for whatever reason, whether it's crime, whether it's drugs, whether it's domestic violence, whatever the case may be. I just want to see us handle what we can do in our own backyard. This is something that we can do without a legislator, without any permission. We can check our hearts and get our young people in a way of learning some level of spirituality and morals and raise them up, And I know I'm going on and on, but there used to be a time where our parents made us go to Sunday school or someplace of faith, just to teach our young people the value of life, because for some reason we're not valuing our lives. And I get it. We want the police to respect us and value us. But if we can't show that we value our lives, it's very difficult for us to expect other people to value our lives. And I'm not giving anybody a pass by treating anyone wrong, including black people, and being racist against them and killing them through the badge. But I'm saying, if you get killed by a police officer or you get killed by the guy down the street, the end results is still death.
That's true.
And I gotta look at how I'm gonna bury these guys. So your point is well taken, ma'am. But I think we can do both. I really do.
We can, but if I may say this also too.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you did speak of the church. The scripture does say that he healeth the broken in heart.
Yes, ma'am.
He bindeth up all their wounds.
Yes, ma'am.
And it also says that when the Son of Man comes, shall he find faith upon the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says too that when he does come, that violence will be upon the land,
mm-hmm.
and every man will do what is right in his own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am brokenhearted about this, as
mm-hmm.
well as I know millions of people are. But we have to first recognize that as a black people have taken on that spirit of slavery, and
mm-hmm.
therefore we are enslaved, or there are some that are still enslaved and bound by that spirit, so they aren't able to value themselves and value others. But, and this is my thought also,
yes, ma'am.
We got to start this at home.
That's right.
Okay?
That's
You
right.
cannot, okay, you cannot force anybody to do anything. But this is my hope and prayer that I could see happen. Start here in Indianapolis, that there is a reservoir of mental health and social entities within the church,
yes, ma'am.
where parents, and this is what I'm going to say, this is what I'm telling you, where parents can go, because you know when your child is off.
That's right.
And if that parent is able to get that child some help, humble yourself, because pride goes before destruction. Get some help there. Then maybe we can see some lives saved.
Yes,
if we can get that parent to turn for help for their child. I don't care whether it's a minor. And I think parents have forgotten that they are responsible for their minor children.
That's right.
And even if that is an adult, or whatever, it starts in the home.
It does. It really does.
In the home.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to start with the parents, the mind of the parents. And I'm going to get off and thank you so much for taking my call. Be of good courage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Yes, ma'am. Well, God bless you, and thank you so much for your call. And I do want to put a disclaimer there, Pastor Ricky. I'm not necessarily diminishing the fact that we have had problems for many years with the criminal justice system and policing and whatnot. But I think we can couple both of those things in there. What you think, Pastor Ricky?
Yeah, I totally agree. I thank the young lady for calling in, of course, Dr. Brown for coming on. But these are issues, very sensitive issues, of course, that we're facing. Nothing is new in terms of what we're seeing happening here. It's just more polarized, and it's happening at a grander scale.
Right
now, I'm in agreement with it starts at home. We can say that. We've been saying that. I was raised in that. However, it starts at home, but is it starting?
Right. Good point. We
can say that, and we have all these things, but I'm a man of execution.
Right.
So we're not. We can talk about this, and we see where it can start. We know the points. We see where it starts in the church. We are aware of this because we are an educated group of people.
Right.
We know all of this. Our thing is execution.
That's right.
That's the main thing. Get it beyond the conversation and execute. And the execution now is not hitting the streets with signs. That's not how we tackle this. If we want to deal with it at a spiritual level, then we're going to deal with it at the spiritual level and watch what we're saying and watch what we're speaking and make sure our prayers are indirect. Now, on the practical side and on the tangible side, we cannot go and do by signs and picketing and rioting and all this other stuff. That's not going to change. Right now, we understand with the legislation and people at the top, we just said that. So now we need the right people in those places. But guess what? We can't wait on that. So right now, it's going to take the real leaders and real kings, understanding that here in Queens and understanding that and who you are to take this and our communities back. And those are coming through what we set up through the local church, through our businesses, through our non-for-profits, through anything that's going to enhance humanity for the better, especially our culture. That's what it's time for. And to get those organizations and to get them involved and pull together. It's time for the oneness. It's not time for all these entities to be separate.
That's right.
We have to get on the phone and reach out to these people and these organizations and pull together and be of service. It has to be togetherness on one. And
that's right.
In scripture, everything happened under one. Nothing moved. God didn't move until the people was one. We talk about that with the Tower of Babel. He came down, he said the people are one, and then he confounded the languages. Why? Because they was building the tower up to heaven. And guess what? God gave us the power to do that. And that's why he confounded the languages. It's in us to do the miraculous. We have to understand as individuals of who we are first before we do anything and understand how powerful we are. And that's what's missing. But that's what needs to be taught.
That's right, Pastor Ricky. That is great. And I'm going to come back to that oneness part. We do have a caller. I believe his name is Ron on the other line. Go ahead with your question and comment.
Good afternoon, and hello to everyone, and thanks for taking my call. Every now and then, I'm so proud of what Larry says, because Larry speaks the truth. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, it is hard for us to look at ourselves honestly.
Right.
I hear pastors and everybody blaming everybody other than the person who might be responsible. It is individual responsibility, and I do not understand why Black people have such a difficulty with truth. Mm-hmm. You know, people want to, and I can tell you how you know the truth sometimes. Mm-hmm. You watch and see where Trump goes to court, and you watch and see where Al Sharpton shows up. It's unlikely that they're going to do a whole lot of showing up at Michaela's house, because you got video of that little girl, that big girl, with a knife going after another girl. You also got video of a Black man kicking the girl that she was chasing. Why didn't we fix all of that? Nobody wants to say that out loud. Why didn't we stop that? There were grown-ups there. Somebody there should have stopped that instead of calling the white man and then blaming him when he come there and start shooting.
Let me thank you for your call. Thank you for your sir. I gotta cut you off. Thank you for your call, because I want to make sure with this show we be more solution based, and I don't want to depict anybody as a white man or police. Anybody can come to your house as a police officer. We don't know what color that person might be, but I do agree with the fact that the parent, whoever that adult was, really failed that situation. But I do want to say, Dr. Brown, I want to throw this to you, because it seems because of the desensitivity that we have toward one another, that we have also licensed this ideal of violence, so that we know that there's a variety of different ways people can be subdued. But with us, it's always the killing. And that, from police officers, that's always the solution. Not tasing or maybe billy club to knock the knife out. No, we want to shoot 3 or 4 times to kill a person. But I think that kind of goes back on the fact that we don't value our lives, and when we don't value our lives and others show up, they may have the liberty to do a little more further violent toward us, because it seems as though we're practicing so much violence toward each other. Can you help me out with that, Dr. Brown?
Well, you come up with another interesting word that I work on, mm-hmm. and at the same time, see, you made it very plain when you opened the show. You're struggling with some grief yourself as mm-hmm. being a pastor, and mm-hmm. having. I've done what you talked about probably about 700-800 times mm-hmm. Of people who you serve or people you interact with, and you see this and you grieve. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you're trying to present, and the key word is violence. Mm-hmm. What would you think is the best way to change person's notion about what corrects violence? And when I throw it out to the students, or when I throw it out in different places that I meet, have you ever had a course in nonviolence?
That's a good one, Dr. Brown.
Oh, I was going to bring in where I am.
Come on, Doctor.
So when you talk about law enforcement, it's the term law enforcement.
Right.
Well, it is implemented mm-hmm. with a notion to be violent.
Right.
Now, what's a catchword behind violence is violate. Mm-hmm. We violate one another. We can violate people not just with the physical, but we violate people with our body language.
Come on, Doc.
We violate people with. I have seen more violating of people with language.
Yes. Come on, man.
So I'm bringing it back. The only correction for violence is to babies. We did years ago. They've been doing it for years. You take a group of 6-month-olds who can sit on the floor and they all look at each other. When one cries, they all cry, or when one smiles, they all smile. There is something, and I'll just use a term that people use, in their DNA. Does not imply violating. Does not imply violence.
Right.
We learn to be violent because we're taught it.
Right. Right.
So how do you correct violence if you start teaching nonviolence? And teaching nonviolence is back to this 21st century of what we call the 21st century. How do we implement an educational curriculum or a method of teaching nonviolence?
Right.
For a pastor, how much of your educational initiatives are around teaching mothers and fathers and children to be nonviolent?
Right.
So that becomes the challenge. I feel that America has become America not because of her nonviolence, but because of her violence.
Right.
Now, when I go to my Amish community or my Mennonite community, who I interact with, always in a personal and private way, they do not have a strong energy for violence.
Right. Right.
But we have a strong energy within our culture for violence. And as the lady was talking about law enforcers, I know too many. Would you want to be a policeman?
Oh, no, I wouldn't want to be a policeman. Not right now.
Well, I mean, at any time, you're called when there is a violent problem going on.
Right, right, right.
And you go into that energy.
Right.
You first thing you're going to do is you're going to protect yourself.
You're going to do that for sure.
Somebody else. I think of all of my partners who went to Vietnam, taught how to kill, taught and brainwashed in being violent. They would come back. They would say to me, all of them would say to me, man, yeah, I'm out of the war, but the war is not out of me.
That's right. Well, Dr. Brown, you know, this is what I should have done. I'm bringing a caller on in a second. My lovely wife, she's been waiting patiently, but I want to put a disclaimer on this show. Dr. Brown, Dr. Thomas Brown is one of the most brilliant men in all of America.
Please don't.
I'm just saying, Doc, can I just get my part? I mean, I know. Just tune me out for a second. I just got to say what I believe.
I'm not trying to violate you.
Okay, don't violate me, Doc. Okay, this man has seen so much and walked with so many different leaders that we have a high regard. When Martin Luther King on down, this man worked with Snake. I mean, he is a legend. He don't like calling me a legend. Turn your mic down, Dr. Brown. He's a living legend. He don't like me saying that. And, you know, he's very stickler on words. But I love this man so much. He's just so wise in what he says. And I just wish that we could come together and get in a room and listen to him, because he is somebody worth listening to. Go ahead, caller. My lovely wife, Shauna Lipscomb, is on the line. Go ahead with your comment and questions, dear.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to say thank you for providing this platform for such a touchy subject to be discussed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have two things I wanted to address from my perspective in relation to it starts at home. That was the statement that was made.
Right.
What we're not willing to realize is that we have so many broken homes. I come from an area.
Oh, wow. That's good, wife. That's good.
A village to raise a child.
That's good.
And so we have a responsibility to go into those homes that are broken.
Yeah.
That are not preparing the children for what's in this community.
That's right.
So even though it should start at home, but unfortunately, there is not enough in the home that will keep children from being exposed to things that they should not be exposed.
That's right. That's right. That's
so
good.
We, as a community, we have to put our hands to it.
Right.
So we can no longer keep saying it starts in the home. It starts in the community. It takes a village to raise a child. Is what I'm accustomed to. My grandmother would spank everybody in the apartments, and she fed everybody in the apartments because it took a village, and she sowed into people. And we got to sow into these children. We got to put our hands to the plow. And so I wanted to just give my perspective regarding it starts in the home. No, it starts in our community. It starts with us as a race, as a people. We need to take more responsibility for the ones who are not being taught in the home.
Now, dear, what you can do right now is just drop the mic. Just drop the mic. That's drop the mic statement. Amen. So we thank God for such a wonderful statement. And it's so true. Because if we just think about the start that should or should not happen in the home, where lies that child? If you don't have the parent, and you got to look at all of what's going on and influencing the way people are thinking. Like I see Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Pastor Ricky, y'all still with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm here.
But look at this, Dr. Brown. You can hear when I was listening to the caller, I could hear her heart, but I also could hear the influence of the major media. It's like this media is a machine and it's keeping one group fed with one line of dialogue and narrative, and then it's keeping the other group fed with, with their perspective. And of course, there are two opposite perspectives, because it seems as though my white brothers and sisters are thinking about things in this kind of a way, and they're being fed from the major media market that kind of way of thinking. And then when you look and listen to us, I don't, pretty much I'm offended about you trying to save the lives here in Indianapolis, and we need to stay focused on the policing and dealing with that as though we can't do both. And I believe we can do both. But it seems as though because the major media is not necessarily talking about how black lives should matter to black people. They're not saying that. They're saying it should matter to the police officer. So can y'all help me out with that? Because it just seems as though there's a propaganda there of us feeding from this major media market and being desensitized about our own community and what we need to do for our own community.
Let my contemporary pastor speak to that. I can speak to it, but our other co-hosts here.
Yeah. So thank you for that, and I will echo because me and Pastor talk about this all the time, and just given to what happened to what he said in the very beginning of the call to one of our young men that was a part of our Safe Sundays at our church. Pastor have forgot to mention that we provide Safe Sundays. Oh, he did? Okay. Yeah. So
I didn't mention it. You can go ahead. I forgot to mention it. You're right.
Yeah. Right. So we provide Safe Sundays at our church every other Sunday from 6 to 9. And the whole objective of that is to bring all the guys from the community, especially where our church is centrally located in a urban community where the crime is very high. We want to bring those guys into our gymnasium at the school, and we play games. We got sports. We teach. We encourage, and we call it Safe Sundays. Well, the gentleman today that was part of that, and guess what? He was coming from Atlanta, Georgia. He drove from Atlanta, Georgia, every other week to come to these Safe Sundays. And he was one of the pioneers and one of the people that we saw transitioning from the streets that wanted something different. So Black lives have to matter to us. I don't want to get involved with any Black Lives Matter movement. I told my pastor that. Why? Because it has to matter to us first. And that's paramount. And I am very serious about that. Until it matters to us, it did not matter to anyone else. Why? Because they're saying the same thing. Every other culture is saying the same thing. When is it going to matter to us? And the numbers are significantly high. We've been gunned down by police. True enough. So I'm not omitting nor negating that. But I'm telling you what, when we look at the numbers, the scale is lopsided on us in our own community that's killing us. So the Black lives have to matter to us first. Now, let me say this real quick. Here's the 2 points. The music, the rap music, the videos, and the social media. That has to change. We don't own any of these big networks and these media stations. So that's another thing. But guess what? Us as collectively, as a culture, we have the money and the resources to own any station that we want to. And now that's when we begin to change the narrative and be able to disseminate the information on how we see our culture and what's happening. We get to change that by what? Because now we hold the keys to the media and we got the money to do it. That's why I was saying if all of us will begin to get on one sheet and take our resources, because we're spending $1.7 trillion as a culture. We spend $1.7 trillion as a culture. So, ladies and gentlemen, does that sound like more than enough money that we can get some major things happening here in the United States, in many cities? $1.7 trillion that we're spending as a consumer. So that's
right.
Where it has to start in the very beginning from our media outlets. We have to change that. When you look at the rap videos, these young guys ain't nothing but girls. Why? And these media outlets, they know this, but this is where to get back to the Willie Litt speech. He say, man, y'all are doing it wrong. Bring them off the trees. You stop hanging them. I'm gonna show you. Guess what he said? I'm gonna show you another way to be able to break that mind down, and you will have this go on for generation and generation and generation, 400 years plus, and it was all mental. But guess what? These people, the white men now they're not listening to all that. They're letting us by default. So now they control everything. We talk about the media stations and the content on there, they're putting it out there.
That's right, Pastor Ricky.
Say everything they want to say. Go ahead, Pastor.
You good, Doc? I want to make sure we get as many calls in as we
go
can.
Ahead, I'm done.
We got another caller. Feel free to go ahead with your comment or question.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is Guy calling. First, tremendous program you're having this evening. Those calling in and whatnot, presenting some great ideas. I think, it's great to have ideas, but I think what we need to do is take action steps. We pretty much know what the problem is,
mm-hmm.
and we have to take action steps, I believe. And one would be the fact that before Congress now, before the U.S. Senate,
mm-hmm.
is the Policing and Justice Act in the name of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is being presented by U.S. Representative Karen Bass of California,
mm-hmm.
and she's trying to work with the Republicans in the Senate, because without them, it'll die. So I think we need to contact our congresspeople, particularly our senators around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that in different states, to have them contact their two senators to.
And what's that bill before we get you off the line? What's the bill again?
It's the George Floyd
bill.
George Floyd bill.
Justice and Policing Act.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for your call. We got another caller that's calling in. Maybe with an action item. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, it looked like we lost that caller.
My colleague over there hit a very strong narrative, and he's speaking within the framework of economics. He's talking about the black community becoming economically astute. And what you presented in your statement, Antonio, was the fact of the media. I want you all to think about a word that I use all the time in different circles: enterprise. The media is an enterprise. Enterprise, as an economic term, is about making money. It's about wealth, and it's about control, and it's about power. And the enterprise of media, you all are very clear. I watched DMX. I watched DMX funeral. Very interesting. Very interesting. They were glorifying his success in the enterprise.
Right.
But at the same time, that enterprise has been destructive to us in many kind of ways.
Yes.
The media is an enterprise. Fox, CNN. I mean,
come on.
I can name a bunch of them.
Yes.
But they will give you information to make you listen. It's almost like brainwashing.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought when you were talking.
It's an enterprise, and we get stimulated, and like the brother talks about the rap music, man. For the past 30 years, the rap or how we demean ourselves, how we demean our sisters. It was like people were getting orgasms off of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enterprise, and what is the enterprise in the black experience that benefits us economically? The definition of economics is basically production, distribution, and consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And when you speak of capitalism, that's a system inside economics, or it's socialism inside economics, or it can be communism inside economics. It can also be some other feudalism. These are economic systems. But economics of God was God produced,
mm-hmm.
God distributed, and God gave a method of consumption. As we call it, Mother Nature. She produces,
mm-hmm.
distributes, and then she does a twist to make it consume and reproduce again.
That's right. Hey, Dr. Brown, I only got about 30 seconds now, but I think if you can remember, let's come back and talk about those points, because I think those are really key points to turning around all communities, black community, whatever community, poor community, white, poor community, whoever. It's time for us to talk about how we can collaboratively work together to do exactly what you have said. I just want to say how much I do appreciate all of you all, my co-host, Dr. Thomas Brown, and of course, Pastor Ricky C., Associate Pastor of Community Church Indy. We appreciate you guys for coming on. And last thing, I want to say, for those who are listening, please know that we can do something about Indianapolis. Let's make Indianapolis better. Indianapolis is where we live. Let's not forget about where we live. We live in Indianapolis. Let's not get caught up on everything that's going on outside of Indianapolis when we know our home needs to be fixed. That's all I'm trying to say. Well, God bless you. You've been listening to Black Power Presents. Been your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Stay tuned every Monday from 6 to 7. God bless you. Peace.